Part 3. The Final Broadcast. The static grew deafening as the walls of the bunker seemed to shift and ripple like a mirage. Mike's vision blurred, his sense of balance failing him as the ground seemed to tilt. He could feel the weight of something unseen pressing down on him. A presence, a force that had been lurking in the background this whole time. Panic surged through him, but there was no escape. He was trapped. He turned back to the terminal, hoping for some way out, but the screen remained locked on a single line of text. Welcome to the experiment. The room pulsed with a strange energy, and Mike's mind began to race, trying to make sense of what was happening. Vault 64 wasn't just a relic of a forgotten experiment. It was still active. Somehow, someway, the simulation had been reinitiated, and now he was a part of it. Suddenly, the static cut out, replaced by a chillingly familiar voice. It was 3 Dog, the DJ from Fallout 3, but his tone was different. Flat, emotionless, as if he were reading from a script. Well, kiddies. Looks like we've got ourselves a new player. Welcome to the wasteland. Hope you're ready to survive. Mike's blood ran cold. This wasn't a glitch in the game anymore. It wasn't just a number station or a strange email. Whatever Vault 64 was, it was far more than a digital simulation. It was a living, breathing entity, and it had drawn him in. The lights flickered again, and the terminal beeped, displaying another message. Initiating Phase 2, full environmental simulation. Before Mike could react, the room began to change. The sterile walls of the command center dissolved, replaced by the crumbling remains of a post-apocalyptic landscape. The ground beneath his feet turned to cracked asphalt, and the air became thick with the acrid smell of burning metal and ash. In the distance, the ruins of a city loomed, silhouetted against a blood-red sky. It was the capital wasteland, straight out of Fallout 3. Mike staggered backward, his mind struggling to comprehend the transformation. The world around him felt real, too real. The heat from the sun, the wind carrying the scent of decay, the distant rumble of a collapsing building. This wasn't just a simulation anymore. It was as if he had been transported into the game itself. He looked down at his hands and realized they were different, no longer his own. His skin was rough and scarred, his fingers calloused from years of survival. His clothes, too, had changed, now a tattered mix of leather and metal armor, just like the lone wanderers in Fallout. He patted his side and felt the cold weight of a 10mm pistol holstered at his hip. His heart raced. He was in the game. The familiar HUD from Fallout flickered into view, overlaying his vision. Health, radiation levels, ammunition. It was all there, just as it appeared in the game. But this wasn't some VR headset or digital experience. Mike could feel the weight of the gun, the heat of the sun, the grit of the wasteland beneath his boots. The sound of footsteps behind him snapped him out of his daze. He spun around, drawing the pistol instinctively, and found himself face to face with a group of raiders. They were exactly as he remembered them from the game, dirty, savage, and armed to the teeth. One of them grinned, his face twisted with malice. Looks like fresh meat, boys. Let's see how long he lasts. Without thinking, Mike fired. The shot was loud, the recoil real, and the raider dropped to the ground with a sickening thud. The others snarled in rage, charging toward him with bloodlust in their eyes. Mike ran. His heart pounded in his chest as he sprinted through the ruins, his breath ragged and his legs burning. He could hear the raiders behind him, their shouts growing louder as they closed in. But this wasn't like playing Fallout from the safety of his couch. This was real. The pain, the fear, it was all consuming. He ducked into a crumbling building, hoping to lose his pursuers. Inside, the air was thick with dust, the remnants of a pre-war life scattered across the floor, broken furniture, shattered windows, and the faded remnants of once vibrant posters. Mike crouched behind an overturned desk, his heart hammering in his chest as he listened to the raiders outside. He went in there. One of them shouted, Flush him out. Mike's mind raced. In the game, he would have easily dealt with these enemies, but here, in this terrifyingly real version of the wasteland, he was just as vulnerable as any other scavenger. He checked his ammo. Only a few rounds left. The door creaked open, and Mike held his breath, gripping the pistol tightly. He could hear the raiders' footsteps, their guttural laughter as they searched the building. One of them kicked over a chair, muttering curses under his breath. Come out, wherever you are," one of them taunted. Mike's hands trembled. He couldn't take them all on. Not like this. But if he didn't do something, they would find him, and it would be over. Then he noticed something on the ground, a frag mine, half buried in the rubble. Without hesitation, he grabbed it and armed the device, tossing it toward the door just as the raiders entered. Boom. The explosion rocked the building, sending debris flying in all directions. Mike shielded his face as the raiders were blown back, their bodies crumpling to the ground. The dust settled, and the room fell eerily silent. Mike stood there, panting, his ears ringing from the blast. He had survived, barely, but this was just the beginning. He could feel it in his bones. This wasn't just a game anymore. He was trapped in the wasteland, and if he didn't figure out how to escape, he would die here. Days passed, though time felt different in the wasteland. Mike scavenged what he could, finding food, water, and ammunition in the ruins. He encountered other survivors, some friendly, others hostile, and fought off mutated creatures that roamed the barren landscape. The HUD in his vision continued to track his stats, but unlike the game, there were no save points, no respawns. Every encounter, every decision, could be his last. As Mike wandered through the wasteland, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. It wasn't just the raiders or the creatures that lurked in the shadows, it was something else. Something bigger. The simulation was still running, and he was its unwilling participant. Then, one night, as he made camp in the ruins of an old gas station, he heard it again. 9, 3, 7, 2, 4, 0, 6. The numbers echoed in the distance, carried on the wind like a phantom's whisper. Mike's skin crawled. The numbers had been haunting him since he arrived, but now they seemed closer, more insistent. He followed the sound, his curiosity and fear pulling him toward its source. It led him to an old, rusted radio tower, half buried in the sand. The structure was ancient, but still functional, its red lights blinking dimly against the night sky. At the base of the tower, Mike found a terminal, an exact replica of the one he had seen in Vault 64. The screen flickered to life as he approached, displaying a single message. Final broadcast, initiating reality merge. Mike's heart stopped. Reality merge. Before he could react, the ground beneath him trembled, and the world around him began to tear at the seams. The sky cracked like glass, the stars bleeding into one another. The ruins of the wasteland dissolved, replaced by flickering images of the real world. His world. The boundaries between simulation and reality were collapsing, blending into one chaotic mess. Mike stumbled backward, his mind reeling. The numbers, the damned numbers, rang out louder than ever, drilling into his skull. 9, 3, 7, 2, 4, 0, 6. The simulation was breaking down, and with it, the line between the wasteland and the real world. Mike fell to his knees, clutching his head in agony as the two realities collided. And then, as quickly as it began, everything went dark. When Mike awoke, he was lying on the floor of the Vault 64 control room. The terminal was dead, the screens black. The static was gone. Everything was silent. He staggered to his feet, his body aching, his mind spinning. Had it all been a dream? A nightmare? He wasn't sure. But as he stumbled toward the exit, he heard one final message, faint and distant, as if it were coming from another world. Experiment complete. Thank you for your participation. Mike walked out into the desert, the sun rising on the horizon. Reality, or what was left of it, felt fragile, like a thin veil over something far more sinister. He knew one thing for certain. The experiment wasn't over. Not yet. And neither was he.